The night is still save for the gentle rustling of autumn leaves against the window, and a single oil lamp casts long shadows across the study, its flame dancing with each whisper of wind that finds its way through the aging manor. The floorboards creak beneath my feet as I settle into the worn leather chair, the musty scent of old books and history filling my nostrils. Welcome, dear viewers, to the Ghastly Journal. I am your host, and tonight we delve into the twisted tale of the Ashford Dynasty and the peculiar fate that befell 21 of its heirs, all of whom drew their final breath at precisely 921 in the evening. A coincidence, you might think, but as you will soon discover, there are no coincidences in the story I am about to tell you, only the inexorable workings of a fate set in motion by one man's boundless ambition and terrible sacrifice. The year was 1863. While the nation tore itself apart on distant battlefields, another war silent, but no less deadly, raged within the grand walls of Ashford Manor in western Pennsylvania. The Civil War had transformed America into a landscape of divided loyalties and bloodshed. But in this remote corner of the Commonwealth, far from the cannon fire of Gettysburg and the political machinations of Washington, the Ashford family faced a threat far more insidious than Confederate soldiers or Union blockades. Ashford Manor stood as a sprawling estate nestled among rolling hills and dense forests, its imposing silhouette visible for miles across the countryside. The locals spoke of it with a mixture of awe and unease, for while the Ashfords brought prosperity to the region, there had always been whispers about the means by which they acquired their immense fortune, even in the midst of a nation at war with itself. The events that unfolded at Ashford Manor that year would prove so disturbing that they would be remembered long after the battles of Antietam and Chancellorsville had faded into history books. The Ashford family story begins not with death, but with tremendous fortune in 1789, just as our fledgling nation took its first steps under President Washington's leadership. William Ashford, a young entrepreneur with little more than determination and cunning, set sail from Liverpool to seek opportunity in the New World. The Atlantic crossing was treacherous. A violent storm nearly claimed the ship and all aboard, but William would later write in his journal that during the worst of the tempest, as passengers prayed and sailors cursed, he had made a silent vow to whatever forces might be listening spare him, and he would build a dynasty that would endure for centuries, whether divine providence or mere chance. William survived the journey, landing in Philadelphia with just 12 to his name, a worn copy of Adam Smith's The Wealth of Nations, and an almost supernatural confidence that bordered on arrogance. Philadelphia in 1789 was a city of opportunity, the temporary capital of the United States, and a bustling center of commerce. William, with his sharp mind, refined English accent, and sharper business sense, soon found work as a clerk for a shipping merchant. Within 3 years, he had learned enough about the business to strike out on his own, borrowing money at ruinous interest rates to purchase a small sloop. His gamble paid off spectacularly. His first cargo of European textiles sold at a profit of over 300%, allowing him to immediately purchase a second larger vessel. By 1795, Ashford Shipping flew its flag on 6 vessels plying the Atlantic trade routes, and William had earned a modest fortune and a reputation as a businessman who would stop at nothing to succeed. But it was coal that transformed the Ashfords from merely wealthy to dynastically rich. During a business trip to western Pennsylvania in 1798, William's carriage broke an axle on a rutted country road. While waiting for repairs in a small settlement, he struck up a conversation with a local farmer who mentioned the strange black rocks he occasionally found while plowing his fields. The farmer considered them a nuisance, but William, who had seen the early coal-fired factories of England, pennies on the dollar from farmers who had no idea of the treasure beneath their soil. By 1810, William controlled over 20,000 acres of coal-rich land, and Ashford mines supplied the black fuel to factories and homes across the Northeast. The timing proved impeccable. The Embargo Act of 1807 had cut off foreign trade, making domestic coal crucial to American manufacturing. William's miners worked in conditions that would horrify modern sensibilities. Men and boys as young as 6 labored in dangerous, unventilated shafts for 14 hours a day, earning barely enough to feed their families, while the Ashford coffers swelled when a cave-in killed 37 miners in 1812. William was reported to have been more concerned with the interruption to production than the loss of life. Ordering the mine reopened within a week, bodies still entombed in its depths. Such callousness and William enemies, but his wealth insulated him from consequences. By 1815, He had become one of the wealthiest men in the state, perhaps in the entire nation. Politicians courted his favor, banks extended him unlimited credit, and society hostesses competed for his presence at their gatherings. With his fortune secured and growing exponentially, William turned his attention to establishing a physical legacy. He purchased 5,000 acres of pristine land in western Pennsylvania and commissioned the construction of Ashford Manor, a testament to his success in the beginning of what he hoped would be a lasting dynasty. No expense was spared. European craftsmen were brought across the Atlantic at great cost. Marble was imported from Italy, and exotic hardwoods arrived from as far away as Brazil and the East Indies. The manor itself was a marvel of architecture, 3 stories of imposing grandeur with 38 rooms, a massive library, and gardens that rivaled those of European aristocracy, built of local limestone with dark walnut interiors. Its most distinctive feature was the central clock tower that rose above the main structure. Inside the tower hung a magnificent clock, specially commissioned by William from Switzerland's finest clockmakers. The immense timepiece with its intricate brass mechanisms was said to keep perfect time, never gaining or losing so much as a second. Its face, 6 feet in diameter, was crafted of pure white marble with numerals of inlaid obsidian, while its hands were fashioned from gold mined in the California territories. The clock's sonorous chime could be heard for miles across the countryside, marking the hours with a deep resonant tone that some locals described as mournful, like a widow's lament. The clock became William's obsession during the manor's construction. He personally supervised its installation, dismissing the Swiss clockmakers and insisting on completing the final adjustments himself, working alone in the tower for 3 consecutive nights. When he finally emerged, haggard and hollow-eyed, the clock began to keep perfect time, though observers noted that it never chimed at 921 morning or evening. When questioned about this peculiarity, William merely smiled and said some hours are best left unmarked. The manor's interior was equally impressive, with soaring ceilings, intricately carved woodwork, and furnishings imported from the finest houses in Europe. The grand hall, situated directly beneath the clock tower, featured a black and white marble floor laid out in a complex geometric pattern that, when viewed from the second floor gallery, created an optical illusion of infinite depth. Crystal chandeliers hung from elaborately molded ceilings, while all paintings of stern-faced ancestors, many commissioned after the fact, as William had no illustrious lineage to display, glared down from gilt frames. The library, William's sanctum sanctorum, housed over 10,000 volumes on subjects ranging from business and law to more esoteric topics such as alchemy, astrology, and ancient religious practices. Many of these texts were exceedingly rare, acquired through William's extensive network of agents across Europe and Asia. Several were written in languages few Westerners could read: ancient Aramaic, Sanskrit, and even what one scholar later identified as Enochian, the supposed language of angels. A massive globe 12 feet in diameter dominated the center of the room, its surface marked not with political boundaries, art with strange symbols and lines that corresponded to no known cartographic system. The gardens surrounding the manor were laid out with similar attention to detail, and no small amount of symbolism viewed from above. The paths and plantings formed an elaborate labyrinth, at the center of which stood a marble gazebo housing a curious sundial. Unlike conventional sundials, this one was designed to mark only 1 hour of the day, 921 in the evening, when the shade of the manor's clock tower would fall precisely across its face, but only on the summer solstice. This alignment required considerable mathematical and astronomical calculation, further evidence of William's obsession with that particular time. William and his wife Eleanor had 7 children who survived adulthood, 4 sons and 3 daughters, and it was through them that the Ashford bloodline spread, creating a vast and complex family tree with branches reaching into some of America's most prominent families. Eleanor Ashford and E. Montgomery came from a respectable Philadelphia family with modest means but excellent social connections. Their marriage in 1800 had been advantageous for William, opening doors to Philadelphia society that might otherwise have remained closed to a self-made man with no pedigree. For Eleanor, the match offered financial security, though contemporary accounts suggest she found her husband's intensity unsettling and grew increasingly withdrawn as the years passed. Their eldest son, William Jr., was born in 1801, followed by James 1803, Edward 1805, and finally George 1807. The daughters, Catherine 1810, Mary 1812, and Elizabeth 1814, completed the family. All 7 children were raised at Ashford Manor once its construction was completed in 1820, educated by a rotating staff of tutors brought from England. And the continent William was a demanding father who insisted on excellence in all things, particularly business acumen for his sons and social accomplishment for his daughters. Those who failed to meet his exacting standards faced his legendary temper, which could transform from icy control to volcanic rage in an instant. By 1863, William's grandchildren and great-grandchildren numbered nearly 50, with 21 of them considered direct heirs to the Ashford fortune, according to William's meticulously